And now we learn the FBI had the aerial surveillance footage. So wait, you mean the FBI was surveilling the riots from with a drone, and they've not charged any of these people? What the ever living F?
Or release the information to help this court proceeding, to help this trial go along in a more accurate, honest way. Why hasn't that been released? Our taxes were used for that money.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? That case is going down in state court. The FBI is a federal law enforcement agency whose mandate is in federal court. Now, that doesn't mean that the FBI doesn't participate in crimes that are prosecuted in state court, but very, very rarely. And the way they view it is that's a separate court system. It's a Wisconsin state court system. We do not have any obligation to do anything. We have no relationship with that prosecutor to do anything. And they can hide behind that.
But why didn't they bring any charges? Is it because it's not a federal offense?
They could, but usually what would happen is the DOJ would bring charges and they would supersede any of these charges. But the problem is you have, again, a politicized law enforcement community where they're saying because of the riots and because of everything that happened here, the number one target is Kyle Rittenhouse. So we can't go ahead and supersede with a federal prosecution for another defendant or possible defendant because they want to see how that case plays out because they don't want to take the heat away from that.
Did you see that they had a subpoena for the phone of Gage Grosskreutz, the guy with the gun, and they didn't enforce it. They didn't enact it. They ignored it. And the defense actually asked one of the detectives, is it normal that you'll get a search warrant and not use it? And he was like, well, sometimes. And he was like, did the prosecutors ask you to use that search warrant? And he goes, no. And he's like, is it weird that you've been granted the ability to search the phone of this guy and you said no to that?
So there's one remedy for all this, right? When the jury trial is over, any judge has the authority to issue contempt proceedings. What that means is you do not need a prosecution. You do not need a Department of Justice or State Attorney General's office. The judge can call any witness or the prosecutor that appeared before him and said, I think you lied to me. I'm holding you in contempt of court. It's a state felony. You have to bring an attorney and show me why I shouldn't throw you in prison. And it happens rarely, but in a case like this, where you're talking about all these possibilities of exculpatory evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, the only person that can keep it straight is the judge.
When watching this trial, the state is going full emotion, trying to get this Gage Grosskreutz guy to like cry on the stand almost. He's like, I thought I was going to die. The media, fully complicit. You look at the media on this, and it's similar to the Chauvin trial. You'd think the prosecution was like hitting slam dunks. Yeah. This guy was like, I was trying to stop him, and I thought I was going to die, but I had to. And then it's like, you actually listen to the testimony, and he's like, I want $10 million from the city. And what?
but in state court, that's the difference between state and federal court, right? The media is allowed in. TV cameras are allowed into state courtrooms. TV cameras are not allowed in a single federal courtroom in the United States of America, which is why you get those cartoon sketches. You never get videotape, never allowed. But when you do, you play on it.
Jack Posobiec had a good tweet. I don't think he got every single reporter that was down there, but I'll give a shout out. We had it was BG on the scene. It was Richie McGinnis. Right. It was Julio Rosas. It was Ford Fisher. Who else was down there?
Shelby Talcott.
Shelby Talcott was down there.
And then,
Was Drew down there? Drew Hernandez?
No,
he wasn't?
I don't remember.
Who does Lives Matter show? Is that Drew?
Yeah, that's Drew.
Yeah, he was there.
He was there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, he might have been here.
All of these guys, these reporters, all these people, if they were not there, this would not. Yeah, I mean, Rittenhouse would locked up on the emotional testimony alone. But it is like, I have personal experience with the no cross prosecution thing. It's scary to me that we're at a point where during the criminal proceedings for Kyle Rittenhouse, determining whether or not he was acting in self-defense, we're getting evidence of other crimes committed by a ton of other people. And it's actually starting to sound like the crimes were committed against Kyle, but he's the one on trial.
It's scary. And there's unfortunately no way to remedy it unless this judge intervenes afterwards.
He seems to be pretty good.
He might. Yeah. Look, he's a smart judge because you don't intervene mid-trial. That's the dumbest thing you can do as a judge, right? You just hold powder because you know there's things you can do afterwards.
If we get a directed verdict, that'd be nuts. But the fear is there's going to be a riot.
Yeah, he's not going to do it. Yep. He's just not going to. You cannot take the case out of the jury's hand as a judge. You just can't do that.
Even when it goes this far,
because he can always do it after.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. Afterwards, so one of the crazy things is that there was I can't remember exactly what the prosecutors were asking of the witness, but it was objected by the defense on habit and customs, I think it's called. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So he was saying, objection, Your Honor. It's something related to habits and customs. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, basically what happens is when you have a witness on the witness stand and you're trying to get facts into evidence, you need that witness to testify to it. Sometimes what you can say is, John Q. Voter, he woke up every morning at 9 a.m., picked up his Glock, went out to the backyard and shot 17 rounds. If you can prove that he did that every day, you can allow that testimony to come in from a witness who saw it based on habit and custom. That's what that style evidence is used for.
The defense objected on these grounds, and the judge said, he said sustained.
Yeah.
And the defense backtalked the judge. And I'm sorry, not the defense, the prosecutor.
Oh, okay.
The prosecutor was asking a question. The defense objected. The judge sustained the defense. And so the prosecutor backtalked the judge saying, but this is all habit and customs. And the judge goes, you don't need to comment on my rulings.
Ooh.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, man, I've been on the receiving end of that and the giving end of that. And it's.
I was reading a legal analysis from Andrew Branca, and he was like, whoa, you do not backtalk the judge. Like, it's going bad for them.
When it's going downhill, you get out of the way. I mean, and the defense attorney seems to be doing it the right way. If the judge is going after the prosecutor and ruling in your favor, you're just kind of like, all right, keep going.
I'm every day more and more shocked that this is even happening, that the trial is even happening.
Should we make predictions? What do you guys think is going to happen?
Man, I was saying before, life in prison, because they're going to convict him on the murder charges. My view initially was that if just based on what happened in the Chauvin trial, there would be no political willpower to defend principle. The jurors are going to say, I don't want to be here in the first place.
Right.
The judge is going to say, I got 1,000,001 cases to deal with. I don't need this one. And no one is going to stick their neck out for this kid. However, the judge has been pretty fair. He's not given the defense everything they've wanted. There's been a few rulings where he's like, no. They tried getting the gun charge, I think, thrown out because they say that the law specifically says it doesn't apply to 16 and 17-year-olds. It's for those that aren't familiar, the law says a minor can't carry a weapon. Yeah. But it specifically says an exemption. This is what they argued. 16 and 17-year-olds are exempt from this. And the judge was like, that's for the jury to decide on the charge. Right. Then they also tried saying the reckless endangerment charge should I think they were trying to get it thrown out, arguing that Richie McGinnis is the reason for the reckless endangerment charge. I think it's reckless endangerment. That when Rittenhouse was firing on Rosenbaum, Richie McGinnis was right there, and he created a reasonable harm to Richie. Oh, okay. Thus, there's the charge. But they specifically say in the law, if you're acting in self-defense, you did not create a reckless, situation or whatever. And the judge said, that'll be for the jury to decide. So he wasn't going to give them exactly what they wanted. But there was an instance where the defense accidentally referred to Grosskreutz as a victim. And the judge, and he was like, oh, I'm sorry. And the judge was like, strike that comment. Yeah. They're not, what's at trial right now is whether or not these people are victims. So when I started seeing how the judge was acting, when he said you can't call these people victims, but you can't call them rioters, I was like, wow. Like, I'm actually impressed. He's willing to stand up for this. The crazy thing, I don't know if you saw this, was when he ragged on Jeffrey Toobin. That's his name, right? Jeffrey Toobin.
Yeah, Jeffrey Toobin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they were ragging on the judge. And the judge was like, I have followed this to the law. Who is the media to come and start criticizing the work we're doing? They're undermining this court proceeding. Yeah. And that's really, really bad. So I see all that stuff. And now my prediction is probably, I think they'll get him on the gun charge. I think they're gonna get him on a misdemeanor gun charge. I'm not a lawyer, so you're the lawyer. So I actually would defer to you. Recovering. Yeah. But it sounds like they'll get him on a manslaughter thing out of fear.
Yeah, a version of manslaughter, maybe involuntary manslaughter and something like that. Some sort of act that the jury can be like, look, we convicted him. Now over to you, judge, for sentencing. So the judge can still give him a stiff sentence, or he can be like, here's 10 years of probation.
And I think so far we're still only on the state's case, right? The state presents their case, then the switches to defense.
Yeah, and then the state goes again.
Yeah. So I think we still have like 2 weeks or
probably. These cases go for a while. Look, the defense, if they got everything they want, and I haven't been following this case like you guys have, but I probably would not put on a case. If you get everything you want, then you remove the state's possibility of doing a rebuttal case and just repeating their entire prosecution, and you just kind of screw the prosecution if you get the facts you want that you can argue in closing.
If they acquit Rittenhouse, he can't be tried again on related charges?
Not in state court. In federal court, he could.
But even if it's like a different charge, what if they're like, oh, okay, now we're going to try and charge him for something different, but from the event.
So there's a whole like legal equation that goes into that. It's really hard to beat. I mean, they'd have to be like, it was a totally different series of events. We didn't know about it before. New witnesses, new evidence, new timeline.
So not going to happen. He gets acquitted. He gets acquitted.
He gets acquitted.
But if he gets convicted, he appeals.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, what do you guys think?
The evidence looks like it's defense. Like he defended himself. The dude was pulling a gun and coming at him. I mean, that guy.
The first guy said, "If I get you alone, I'll effing kill you."
Yikes.
It's the
that I can't. And these are the state's witnesses. It's a state's case.
That's what I mean.
It's like the conversation of if I put myself in a bear cage and then the bears attack me and I kill the bears. I was defending myself, but I also put myself in the position where those bears had to die.
Well, hold on. But let's fix the analogy. What if it's not you're putting yourself in a bear cage? It's that you have a gigantic silo full of honey and a bear has shown up.
I have to protect the honey.
And so you're like, hey, this is my honey, get away from me, and the bear tries to kill you.
I've been eating a lot of honey lately.
And and the bear says, if I get you alone, I'll effing kill you.
Then I'm on guard.
Yeah.
So it isn't the same as just entering a bear cage and being like, oh no, it's coming right
different.
for us.
He was there to protect the gas station and the buildings and stuff.
Down,
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Let's say it was a stupid thing to do, to think he was going to be protecting that.
I mean, yeah, probably not the smartest thing to do, but it's whether or not he has the legal ability to do it. So
it doesn't affect self-defense, right?
It can, depending on the circumstances, whose property it is, who you can step in to defend anyone if you feel objectively their life is being endangered. The self-defense applies to the person. Property is a little different. If it's someone else's property, you're probably not going to get away with the self-defense argument. If it's your property that you own.
Well, apparently the owners of the car place or whatever said we didn't ask for their protection.
So that's that's
but
not a good fact for them.
I think anybody who's going to come out and say it's like the state has nothing would be wrong. You know, and I'll say, like, I've been hyperbolic on Instagram. I'm like, it's over. And it's like, but I don't mean to say, because I mentioned this in my main video, the state does have some things, right? The guy, Gage Grosskreutz, testified that the only reason Rittenhouse didn't shoot him while his hands were up was that the gun misfired. And so what he said was Rittenhouse was pointing the gun at him while he had his hands up, and then Rittenhouse pulled the rail back to clear and then chamber around, and the media is reporting it as Kyle Rittenhouse held him at gunpoint while he reloaded the gun, which is like not what he said. But the argument is from the witness. This is what the jury heard, that Rittenhouse pulled the trigger and the gun misfired, so then he pulled the rack back to rechamber around and then fired on Gage Grosskreutz. So it's not like the state has nothing.
No, they got stuff to work with.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about reloading a firearm that you already pointed at the target.
Not reloading.
But I know. But that's what
right.
That's what even if I was a prosecutor in that case, that's kind of how I would describe it, because you can kind of get away with the facts saying it's a reload, and you want the jury to hear reload instead of the correct terminology.
I want to make sure I'm being fair, because the state does have their offense. But I will also point out the defense rebutted by showing there was another man who had his hands up that Rittenhouse also didn't fire upon.
Oh.
So if the argument from Gage was that he did, but my hands were up, then it's like, well, how do you explain the other guy with his hands up? He didn't fire on either of you. So it's like you can't claim that he was just singling you out. So I guess we'll see how that plays out, huh? We'll see what happens as the case progresses.
Gage is the guy that got his bicep blown off.
Vaporized.
Jeez.
But this dude was lying the whole time. It was nuts.
Those guys attacked him. One guy came at him with a skateboard, like he was going to smash him over the head with a skateboard.
He did smash him over the head, and they showed video of it. Yeah. And they even asked the detective, "Where's the skateboard?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." It's like, isn't that important to have? And it's like, we didn't look for it. They asked, "Did you do a swab for DNA on the rifle to see if Rosenbaum had grabbed it?" And he's like, "No." What? We didn't do any of those things. And the other thing the defense brought up is, he's like, you filed charges against Rittenhouse before the investigation was completed? And they were like, yes. And he's like, so you didn't have the full facts of the case before you filed charges? And he goes, yeah, but that's typical.
That's usually what happens in state court. So it's the difference between state court and federal court. State court, you charge the defendant, and then you build your case.
Right.
Federal court, you build your case, then you charge your defendant.
And I think this is fair to point out, too. The detective said we have a high-profile homicide where people, see video of it. So charges are laid, and then we start putting together the investigation. But I think it's obvious to anybody who's being honest that they overcharged.
Oh, yeah.
Calling it a homicide seems, they got to prove that They can't just say it's
homicide. Just means a person killed a person.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
It doesn't mean you intentionally murdered somebody. This is what people don't understand. Activists don't get this. They'll be like, a guy was killed by a cop. They ruled it a homicide. And they'll go, whoa, that proves it. Like, it just means
someone died.
Yeah.
Someone died as a result of human action, I believe, right?
So a homicide may not be illegal.
Homicide's never illegal. It's just
Interesting.
you're dead.
Circumstances of
homicide.
your death. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it mean specifically? It means person killed person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then accidental death, the suicide means person killed self, and regicide means person killed king.
Also known as a manslayer. A word
that is the word. I'm pretty sure it's regicide. Right?
It is regicide. Yeah. Tyrion Lannister.
Patricide, yeah.
Regicide.
Love it.
Yeah, patricide, matricide. There's words for all of these things.
Fratricide.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.